Hi, this is Orion. Deciding to give this whole playthrough thing a go, and this is my first time doing this for fun. I'm by no means a professional or anything. I just thought I'd have a little fun, um, because I'm really excited about this series after having reading like Echo and The Smoke Room. This is the next thing, and I think this first update was already insane. So I'm really excited for like future updates, and I'm gonna try to keep up with this. This first playthrough, I've never done this before, so I had to learn so many things. It took me a long time to put this one together because it was just I didn't know what I was doing. So yeah, so let's go. Run. Running was something he was always good at. He was always the fastest in his class. Just last year, he came in second in the 200-meter dash at the state track meet. Just 8 months ago, a coach from the University of Pueblo approached him about joining the track and field team after graduation. Just last month, he realized he was the fastest freshman on the team. Just last week, he started to hang out with older men who could get him to Pueblo's gay bars. Just 3 days ago, one of these men spiked his drink. Just 2 days ago, he woke up in restraints. Just yesterday, he was being tortured. Just 10 minutes ago, he escaped. But now, he's realizing that it doesn't matter. Everywhere he looks is only burning desert. There's no one. His attempts to scream for help matter even less because his voice is broken. He can barely wheeze after what the man did to him. And now, his empty droning sounds are being swallowed up by the desert. All the while, the heavy footsteps scraping through gravel behind him keep coming. The man isn't in a hurry at all. Running was something he was always good at. But now, when it mattered most, he couldn't do it. The fastest freshman at a D1 university was no faster than an old druggie. He definitely would have been if he'd eaten anything over the past 3 days, if his ribs weren't broken, if he could see straight. The man had given him something. He had told him it was for the pain, but the pain was still there, and now he couldn't even stand. His balance was shot, and he kept stumbling until he was just crawling on all fours. It's now that he realizes the man had let him get away on purpose. This makes him realize something else. He was going to die. Tired from the drug, from the past 3 days of constant fear and torture, and from trying to run, he collapses. He lays there in the dirt, sobbing, even though tears don't come out. He had run out of those after all the things the man had done to him. The light above is blinding. He wonders if this is God. His mom was a devout Catholic, and even though he never believed, he promises that light he'll become a believer right there and then, if it saved him. The crunching gravel footsteps get closer. I need to go. His voice is still ragged and hoarse. The footsteps come even closer. I have a meat. There's a childish, high-pitched laugh. Think I must have hit you one too many times. All you do is talk about your fucking track bullshit now. The huge form moves closer. You know that shit don't matter no more, right? His chest aches with overwhelming sadness and despair. And it's not just because he's about to die. It's because his mom won't know what happened to him. And it's because the last text message he saw from her said, "Love you, bug," with 10 heart and kissing emojis. He hadn't responded and just rolled his eyes. He thought he'd be able to respond the next day or the day after that. And then after he'd been kidnapped, the man took his phone and sat it on the counter. It sat there and buzzed over and over with messages, and his kidnapper only laughed when he asked to at least read them. Now the tears flow just as the man leans over him with something heavy in his paw. He hopes his mom is right about God. He hopes he can see her from the other side, just so he can respond somehow. But there was nothing. Cameron holds onto the seat tightly, the coyote's teeth rattling together with every pothole they hit. His boyfriend Devon doesn't seem bothered at all. The bear's paws on the wheel with an elbow hanging out the window. He had been singing loudly to the music playing through the car's Bluetooth speakers, and it wasn't until cell phone service was lost that Devon finally seemed to notice Cameron's unease. "You alright, babe? I think you could go a little slower." "What?" Cameron raises his voice, yelling over the rattling interior. "Go slower! Why? This is the kind of terrain this baby was built for." "Okay, but..." Cameron's voice bounces as they hit another deep groove in the destroyed road. "We don't know what's around any of these bends. What if it just drops off and we go down a ravine or something?" "That's what the roll bars are for, honey. And I'm pretty sure I'm about to chip a tooth." "Ah, come on. You gotta admit there's something nice about feeling the road." Cameron doesn't respond and goes on clutching at his seat. Devon does slow down a bit, though, more carefully maneuvering around the most broken up parts of the road. What happened to the road, anyway? It's only been, 5 years? Flash floods, according to what I read online. Obviously no one's around for upkeep, so this is what happens. Oh yeah, I forgot how the state works. Dry as hell until a wall of watery death comes down the road during monsoon season. The coyote tenses up as the bear makes another smooth but still sudden turn. And it's even hotter than I remember. How are you a coyote, Cameron? This is your climate. You know better than to say that. Just because I'm built for it doesn't mean I have to like it. Yeah, but you hate it in Fort Allen too. It doesn't get ungodly hot there. I can at least deal with it. Well, the transfer to Boneville City's looking good, so you won't have to deal with it much longer. Cameron shrugs. Milder weather would be nice, I guess. Devon grins. Nicer weather, nicer scenery, and nicer people. Everyone's a Mormon, which is why they're nice. The ones living down here aren't. There's a big difference between the fundamentalist and the normal ones, the ones that baptize dead people and wear Jesus jammies under their clothes. Dev shrugs. Most religions are weird when you break them down like that. I'm just saying, whether it's magic garments or prairie dresses, they came from the same fucked up place. Devon doesn't say anything, and Cameron realizes how bitchy he sounds right now. Sorry, I just worry how they might look at us. It's harder to gauge people when they're all fake nice. Yeah, that's true, but look. Devon nods his head toward Cameron's window. The coyote follows his gaze. The rocky, uneven landscape has opened up to a wide expanse of blue. That's Lake Emma, which means Echo is... The bear looks ahead, and the first thing that Cameron sees is a tall, rusty sign with letters on the top that he can't quite read from this distance. Below it is a small, shabby building, and beyond it are a few smaller, even shabbier buildings. Cameron wasn't sure what he'd feel like when he first saw the town. If the coyote really is what Devon thinks he is, then right now he'd feel all the awful, evil things that supposedly happened here. Those small, rundown buildings should be exuding the memories of their past, which would then be projected into his mind. But Cameron feels nothing. Of course, he kind of knew this would be the case, but he'd never been to a place that was famously haunted. Not like Echo, anyway. So, he worried just a little bit. Dev asked him in the past to go to his amateur paranormal investigations, all because the coyote could see things. He'd remind Dev the proper word was hallucinate. The things he saw were manifested by his own mind. There was no reason for him to give it fuel by going someplace supposedly haunted. Dev got the message pretty quickly and stopped asking. They still talked about all those interests he had, though, and Cameron realized there was a lot more to Devon's interest in ghosts than just dumb fun. And even though he'd refused to entertain Devon's psychic bullshit, the bear still took care of him. He'd done so much for the coyote that Cameron was embarrassed to think about it sometimes. So, when Dev got his chance to go to the place he'd wanted to go the most, Cameron decided he had to go as well. He's doing this for Dev, to show his appreciation for everything that Dev had done for him. Still, Devon had been trying to make this seem more like a vacation of sorts, like Cameron wouldn't be doing any investigations at all. He would need to talk to the bear and let him know that he was willing to do this for real, at least within reason. He also needed to tell him why he didn't like doing this, and that part might be hard. It doesn't look so bad, for a ghost town, I mean. Looks can be deceiving. Hang on, gotta pull over for a sec. Why? Want to scout out the lake a bit before dark, and I also gotta take a massive leak. Cameron tries not to sigh, just wanting to get into the town so that he can be sure that he doesn't feel anything, to really make sure that there's nothing to be worried about. He isn't worried about ghosts, but rather his own brain on what it might do. The road becomes smoother and newer looking as they pull up to the lake. They were trying to turn this reservoir into a recreational spot right when it all happened. They both get out, Cameron stretching his legs gratefully. That's too bad. It kind of looks nice. Yeah, this place has had a long string of bad luck. Bad luck is one way to put... Hold that thought. I'm gonna pee. Dev waddles away, clearly having held it until he almost couldn't anymore. Cameron shakes his head, remembering all the rest stops they passed on the interstate. With a sigh, Cameron leans up against the Jeep, staring out across the lake. This really isn't bad at all so far. Sure, they weren't in town yet, but all those dreams he had, all those terrible feelings, they seem silly now. It's just a small former town with a sad history. If his brain was going to manifest something out of this, that something would just be sad. Cameron knows that his hallucinations aren't real. He's known that since he was a kid, and after he saw a monster in a raincoat in his trailer home. He also knows that ghosts aren't real either. But Devon believes, or at least wants to believe. He wants it so badly, and he thinks Cameron can see them. Cameron knows there's something extremely perverse and wrong about his disorder being used like this. Devon is also aware of this. Painfully aware. To the point that Cameron was able to tell days in advance that he was going to ask about taking him on this trip. And yeah, this is wrong. But the bear doesn't even think Cameron is mentally ill. Or at least that's how it comes off to the coyote. Devon doesn't understand how it feels to struggle with reality. The feeling that at any moment, you could lose it. That isn't his fault. Most people have a solid perception of reality, like a normal person should, and they take it for granted. That, and Cameron never really told him what it was like, so how could he understand? He told him a little bit, but he'd always been worried in the back of his mind that Dev would leave if he told him everything. So Dev took those snippets of insight into Cameron's psyche and somehow interpreted it as him being gifted. It had been over 5 years at this point, and Dev had seen Cameron at his worst, and his absolute craziest, and somehow he'd stuck around and still believed that Coyote was just a normal guy with some personal issues. Cameron hugs himself a little tighter, realizing that now was the time to really talk about it. And then after this, they can have a fresh start in Boneville. Whew, I am at least 3 pounds lighter after that. You know, while I don't mind taking a piss in the wilderness, I'm not doing anything more than that. Yeah, I was kind of hoping there'd be a porta potty or two around here, but it looks like we'll have to dig some holes. Dev! Whoa, just kidding, babe. We can drive to the rest stop. What's wrong? The coyote pauses, trying to get into the mindset this sure to be uncomfortable conversation is going to require. Just give me a sec. Cameron sees the bear's demeanor change instantly. Okay. But while I'm giving you that sec, sorry for teasing you and being all gross. I know this isn't really where you want to be right now. I was just trying to lighten the mood. And, it's because I love you. Jesus Christ, stop. Devon goes quiet and swallows, the sound comically audible. There's a pause, and though Cameron tries to keep a straight face, the tension just seems to break on its own. I would much rather hear you make poop jokes than act like that. What? Considerate? Sort of. You are considerate, just not in that weird, anxious way. Well, sue me for trying to be careful. I just don't want to say something stupid, and Cameron cuts the bear off, not wanting to put this off any longer. Just listen and let me talk for a minute. I know you haven't said it, but let's just get it out in the open that I know you wanted me to be here for more than just company. I'm not that stupid. And I just want to say that I don't think this is a good idea because what I have is a mental disorder, not an ability. I know, I shouldn't think of it that way, but I researched it and I just don't think it lines up with you having a mental... Dev cuts himself off as Cameron sighs deeply. Please don't. I'm sorry, but what's important is if this helps you. Whether I think it's real or not, you've done a lot for me, and I want to be able to do something for you. No, what I think doesn't matter. What's most important is... So, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be your psychic for the weekend. Wait, really? Dev, I'm not spending the whole time role-playing like we're having a good, innocent time in that murder town. But I don't want to make you do something you don't. Oh, I want to. I might not like it, but I want to do it. If only for you. Cam. Nope, I've made my decision. And I'm doing it, but just this once. If you're sure. But please don't put me ahead of you. And I did some research on that forum you linked me to a few years back, so my sixth sense is primed and ready. That seems to finally snap Devon out of his reluctance. Wait, seriously? There are so many people like you on that forum. Did you... Listen, I want you to find your answers, I really do. But I think the worst I could do is lie to make you feel better. I'm going to be completely honest about everything, whether or not I see something. Of course, that's what I want, and that's why you shouldn't be getting your hopes up right now. I'm just telling you that I'm gonna try. The bear stares at Cameron for a few seconds, just smiling. What? I'm just glad I met you, and that we're together, and that you're here with me. Devon wraps an arm around Cameron, pulling him into his side as they both lean back against the Jeep. But seriously, if you ever feel like, I don't know, you're just not into it, just let me know. Well, as long as you're not expecting anything, I think it'll be alright. Yeah. Dev goes on grinning and Cameron narrows his eyes. Because I'm getting the feeling you're expecting a lot. Dev pauses, seeming to think. Well, I'm also happy that you're being more open like this. It always felt like you didn't want to talk about it. Cameron also thinks. I guess I just didn't want to be told that what I see must mean something, you know? Yeah, that would get old pretty fast, but since we're talking about it now, does it not? Like, some of the things you mentioned don't make sense, like that raincoat creature, but what about your old friend who, got shot in the head after I hallucinated that someone shot him in the head? Yeah, that one. This is what I'm talking about. You and all of us really like to see meaning in everything. That we have a purpose in life. A reason. A reason, purpose, and the meaning of life means nothing to the universe. Everything just is. Whether it has meaning is up to us. Yes, it's weird that I hallucinated the way he would die, but he was also involved in things that could have led to that. I knew he'd been dealing drugs in a really risky way, so I know his life was in danger. And I was on fucking ketamine. Well, the reason is there. Well, Dev shifts around, clearly uncomfortable and trying hard not to look that way. I get that, but there's a lot of other examples I could bring up. Maybe it's coincidence, but at some point, don't you have to wonder if maybe it's something else? Cameron sighs. Of course I have, but what always worries me about this paranormal stuff you're into, the afterlife and all that, it reminds me of my mom. Dev doesn't say anything, just waiting and listening. You know, toward the end, right before I left, she was usually amped up on something to stay awake for her 3 jobs. Whether it was amphetamines or meth, she barely slept. We'd had this box fan in our trailer, and one day after she turned it on, she asked me if I could hear someone talking from the fan. I said no, but she sat next to it and listened, and eventually had this huge epiphany that it was God. And she did that for weeks, and that's almost all she did when she was home, listening to the fan talk to her. I'm not sure what it was all saying to her. I don't even think I'd really understood what was going on. I just knew that sometimes stim addicts did that kind of stuff, especially when they don't sleep, you know? But then she started to look for specific shapes, arches and half circles. This voice told her that she could get into heaven if she passed under the right one. But the voice also told her that Satan would trick her with fake ones to make the real one harder to find. She pointed these out to me, how there were so many, and yeah, they were there, but when you look for these patterns for something as simple as the shape of an arch, Cameron traces a finger along the arch of the wheel well he's leaning against. You're gonna find them. Eventually, she told me everything was warped. I guess she was so fucked up that these shapes just popped out at her. Like her brain was highlighting them and she couldn't ignore them. On the last day, she told me that even I looked like an arch, and that she thought the devil had taken me. She looked completely done. She told me she'd be back to save me, and then she just walked out of the trailer. A few hours later, she drowned trying to swim under a bridge. And everyone in the trailer park kind of saw it as just another delusional druggie getting themselves accidentally killed. Dev knew Cameron's mom drowned in a river while on drugs, but not the terrible details. And the bear just wraps his arm tighter around Cameron. But I think it was a suicide. That she was just so tired of her shitty life that she bet on that bridge being the arch that would lead her to heaven, one way or another. So that's why I worry about following these patterns, even if it's just something like looking for UFOs or ghosts. Yeah, I think the meth and lack of sleep pushed her over the edge, but is there something more genetic there too? What if I'm predisposed to it? I haven't used since the 2nd month after I met you, but I still see shit. I'm just not delusional, at least not yet, but I worry. Dev clears his throat. I would never let that happen to you. I know I say stupid shit about it, but I know it can be dangerous, and I'm always looking out for you. Honestly, it's nice to hear that, because just letting my mom sit next to a fan for 3 hours straight every day, feeding on her delusions, was the dumbest thing I've ever done. But I was high on my own drug of choice because I just didn't care. But the thing is that even through that hell she was in, she cared. I took too much a few times, and even though she was listening to her fan in her own world, sticking post-it notes to all the shapes she saw, she still noticed right away when my breathing wasn't right. And I woke up to her spraying Narcan up my nose. Cameron sees Devon tilt his head in question. It counteracts opioid overdose. But the thing is, my mom didn't like opioids because they made her nauseous. So that means she got those nasal sprays just for me, just in case, even when I thought she was too absorbed in her own world to care. So it just hurts to think about that night,
How I just let her walk out of the trailer like that. Cameron takes another deep breath. He hadn't planned to even talk about his mom, but it just came out. Sorry, I'm rambling. Dude, do not be sorry. But it's part of why I am the way I am. I know my symptoms don't perfectly match up with what you've researched on the internet, but they're close enough. And honestly, maybe you're right. Maybe there's more after we die, and somehow I can help you find it. But if things go south, and if something's wrong with me, pull me back. Thinking about the shape of an arch still makes me feel sick. Like a reminder of what happened to her and what could happen to me. Wordlessly, Devon pulls Cameron into a hug, and the coyote presses his head against his chest. At that moment, Cameron realizes then why so many people love their therapist. He'd always worried that Devon would get too weirded out by what happened when he was a teenager. That Devon would finally see all his closet skeletons. Neglectful, neglected, abusive, abused, and so hopelessly addicted. Just like his mother. The definition of trailer trash. Cameron was all those things at some point in his life, but he knew that didn't matter to Devon. After a while, Devon lets go and they start getting back to the Jeep, the bear feeling slightly shaky. Cameron's confession was truly harrowing. Devon had known bits and pieces of his coyote's history, but to hear it like that, how he'd overdosed and almost, Dev shudders. He's just glad that the coyote is safe with him now, out of that hellhole. As he's about to get in on his side of the Jeep, he stares out toward the town just a mile or so away. While Cameron had told him that this all had made him feel better, Devon was feeling more conflicted than ever. Everything that Cameron had just told him practically screamed that this was a bad idea, that this wasn't good for him. That does it matter what he thinks about Cameron's hallucinations? That his skimming of abnormal psychology literature about hallucinations led him to believe Cameron wasn't mentally ill? No. How could he take him to Echo after hearing that? How could he ever drag him into this endless hunt for the truth ever again? Yet, at the same time, Cameron's telling him he wants to do this. Dev looks over the hood at Cameron, tapping his blunt claws against the soft top of the Jeep. Hey Cam, what do you say we just keep going north, check out Desiree? You know, see what Boneville might be like. See what the Mormons are really like. That could be fun. While he says this, there's a crushing feeling in his chest, dreading that Cameron might say yes, but at the same time hoping that he will. I mean, with the way things are going, I don't even know if we'll be able to cross state lines in a few weeks. They're starting to shut everything down. But Cameron stares back at him before smirking. Oh no, this is something you've wanted to do for years. I mean, fuck me for dropping all that on you right before we got there. But you know I'm a procrastinator. I don't want you to feel guilty, but just be aware. And I kind of want to face my fears in a way. You know? I'm ready for this. And before Devon can say anything else, Cameron gets in. Dev looks over at the lake, actually not sure what he's about to do. If he was a good boyfriend, he'd drive away from this place. Cameron would yell, curse, and moan about how it took them 10 hours to get there, and Devon would shut him up with one of those sugary abominations from Starbucks. And he would never talk about Echo again. He would listen to Cameron and trust him about how it actually felt to see awful stuff. They'd move, get married, and get a big house, and sooner or later, Dev would get his answer, because everyone does at the end. As they pull out of the parking lot, he thinks he's made his decision. But even as he tells himself he's going to turn left, back up the road they came, he turns right. Because just before he did, he sees a flash of pink in the mind's eye, floating in the middle of a pond, and it's like someone hit him full force in the chest. Before he knows it, Echo is ahead of them. And Dev frowns as they pull into the parking lot of the motel, staring at the graffiti-covered walls. The cartoonish caricatures have a way of cheapening this experience, like this is only a stupid haunted house attraction. So this is home base, huh? Devon rubs the back of his head, feeling self-conscious after talking in this place up for so long. It didn't look this bad in the pictures. People never have respect for stuff like this. I don't think it looks bad. I love street art like this. And it makes me feel less alone, like a lot of people have been here and we're just fine. Actually, keep an eye out in case one of them is lurking around. All the graffiti artists I knew were really nice. It's not nice to do it in a place where a bunch of people got killed. Well, I think a lot of people would disapprove of what we're doing, and I know you're nice. So just lighten up a little. Ow! Jeez. Cameron walks past the bear, slapping him hard in the ass as he does. Devon raises a brow, not sure what to make of Cameron's high spirits. They just had one of the heaviest conversations of their relationship, and, well, maybe that is why. If Cameron was feeling more comfortable being honest and open with Dev, then that could only be a good thing in the bear's mind. After returning a much harder ass slap that makes Cameron yelp, the bear joins him in exploring the area. Considering that the motel is supposed to be the most haunted building in Echo, Dev had thought it would be a good idea to set up base there, specifically in room 12, but most of the numbers are missing, and most of the heavy metallic doors are locked, even though they're all dented from what looks like to be the result of literal battering rams. Well, they sure seem to care a lot about boarding the place up. They probably got tired of dumbasses crawling in and getting hurt. Yeah, but luckily I'm not a dumbass. Hey, what about me? Well, I don't think a music degree will help us in this situation, but you're still pretty smart. Oh shit, that's right! You majored in mechanical engineering and you work at the most valuable industrial automation company in the country. Yep. Devon is a little taken back by just how cold Cameron's response is. Well, go on. Your classes in dynamics and calculus-based physics should figure this out for us. Cameron's voice drips with sarcasm, and Dev can only assume he's making fun of the way the bear had tried to impress him with his coursework during the first dates. But Devon tries to salvage the earlier good-natured mood. Well, I could probably break these boards as long as I move my fist at a high velocity. You see, the amount of kinetic energy... Dev's half-hearted teasing trails off. He never much liked the outright disdain his fellow STEM students had for his arts and soft sciences. It's just that it would get Cameron riled up, and that was funny. In college. Now Devon just feels like a dick. Besides, Cameron's ability to understand and play music is basically magic to the bear. Devon's grasp of music is surface level, and he's slightly tone deaf to boot. Cameron wouldn't ever point this out, he'd just sing along and attempt to harmonize. And while Devon had been offered his six-figure salary career before he even graduated, he had watched Cameron's dreams of working in the music industry slowly evaporate over the past 3 years. Now Cameron is working at a call center he hates. The bear had thought himself to be so smart in college, and yeah, he did all right. But now he's becoming more aware of what a dumbass he is when it comes to communicating with actual people, with his literal boyfriend. He needs to apologize for this one. The bear clears his throat. Yo, Cam. Dev shuffles up to the coyote, but before he can say anything, Cameron just points at a door. See, number 8. And the door over there is number 3, so counting in this direction, Cameron's frosty demeanor is completely gone. 10, 11, and room number 12. And wouldn't you know it, it's open. Ah, sweet. Thanks. I went to college. Ha ha. Now, I'll go in first to make sure everything's clear. Of what? I don't know. Squatters? Well, get ready to find a dead squatter, because how the hell would they survive? Actually, you just reminded me that there are a couple of creeps that live here. Like stubborn locals that won't leave. At least that's what a post said from like 2 years back. What? I don't like the sound of that. Are they dangerous? From what I gathered, they're more of the get off my lawn variety of creeps. Those types can still be dangerous. If no one's been killed yet, I think we're good, but like I said, I'll look out for you. Dev lets out a mock growl. I'll make them permanent residents of Echo. And by that, I mean dead ones. Devon. Now Devon can tell that the coyote really is upset. What's wrong, babe? You told me that no one lived here. You said that a bunch of times. Cameron, it came up a few times on the forum, and the posts I remember were really mundane. I honestly just forgot. All right. Devon stares at the coyote, waiting, but he doesn't say anything. Cameron, is there anything you want to tell me? If there is, I'm still hoping you'll be open, like you said. I know. Hey, it's all good, man. It's not like I'm expecting you to just share everything on your mind now, but I'm here to listen if you want to talk. It's just hard to explain. I guess the fact that there are real people still living here does make it feel a little scarier. Does it have to do with the dreams you were having? Dev watches Cameron closely, but he does seem genuinely confused himself. Kind of, but they were weird. I don't think they really meant anything. Yeah, I'm just overreacting. I just really don't want to have the deliverance experience on top of the ghost, you know? I get you. And there's nothing wrong with being vigilant. My friend from Southland, the one from the town even more haunted than Echo, he says something horrific happens between a backpacker and an outback redneck every year or so. How comforting. But while I was joking earlier, if anyone tries anything, I will do what needs to be done to stop them. Deb doesn't tell Cameron that in the moment, he kinda does wish he'd gone through with getting a gun for protection. If those men are still around, the bear has no doubt that they have plenty of guns. Well, let's not think about that because it's not going to happen. Unless they are squatting in that room. Not for long. The bear's exaggerated bravado becomes genuinely cautious as he opens the door. The room is hotter than it is outside, as if it were magnifying and trapping the heat. Okay, yeah, this is doable. Hey Cam, all clear. Aw, no murderous hillbillies in the... Oh, gross. What were you expecting? We just need to straighten it out a bit. Look, there's even a mattress over there. Wait, we're not gonna use it for sleeping or anything, are we? Why do you think I brought sheets? Oh, I am not sleeping in... Kidding. I already told you I have a room booked in Peyton. And we'd better use it, no matter how into this you get. Of course, but we might as well make this place as comfortable as we can anyway. Cameron is quiet and Dev turns to see him staring at a plethora of rusty nails on the ground around the window and the mattress. Your tetanus shot is up to date, right? That's a great question. Yeah, great. Just don't puncture yourself on anything. I'll try to clean those up at least. Cameron watches Dev step back, brushing his paws against each other loudly. Well, I'd say that's rather cozy, don't you think? I've seen actual homes that look worse, so yeah, I'd say so. Cameron eyes the couch and slowly sits on the edge, not quite trusting it despite the sheet. So, what do you know about paranormal investigation? You said you did research? Turns out you just run around with a flashlight and call the ghost a bitch. Good one. Damn, sorry. Didn't know the reality show ghost hunts were such a sore spot for you. They single-handedly ruin the credibility of actual investigations. Well, they brought it more attention, right? Anyway, all I really know is what you do. EVP stuff, taking pictures, just sitting around and waiting, stuff like that. That's a start. Actually, I was thinking you deal with most of that stuff. So what I mainly researched had to do with those who are gifted. It's almost physically impossible for the coyote to use that word to describe people like him. Oh, yeah. I wanted to say earlier how happy I was you looked through that forum. It must be annoying just hearing me go on about it when I don't even experience it. No, you're fine, Dev. Actually, Cameron much preferred to hear it from Dev. Half of the people in the forums were clearly liars with a savior complex. And then the other half were contacting these assholes to help communicate with a dead loved one. Cameron couldn't stomach it and just ended up looking at a blog that seemed a bit more legit. So, what did you find out? The way the bear is lit up now that they're talking about investigations reminds Cameron that he needs to at least try. Well, according to these psychics, it's pretty simple if you have the extra sense. First, approach the location with clear intentions. I'm here to see or hear something from the past. Second, keep an open mind, which is something I promised to do. And finally, if you sense that the presence is hostile, always remember that it can hurt you. In these cases, they might not actually be a person. I wouldn't worry about demon shit. Even I have a hard time believing in that. Hey, there's something we can agree on. Now, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and assume something terrible happened in this room. Why else look for a specific room, right? I don't want you to tell me what happened, but I also assume this is a bit of a test. Well, I don't want to call it a test. I'm gonna be recording and looking for thing that happened in this room too. Just thought you might want to see if you sense anything and compare it with what actually happened. I think that's a good idea. I'm just going to do some light touch sensing, I think they call it. So I won't see anything, but just sense what might have happened. But tell me if you feel things aren't right, of course. I'll be fine. All right, I'll get started. We won't go super late tonight. Just want to get a feel for things. Sure. I'll get started by opening my mind and making my intentions clear. Okay, babe. I love you. Devon leans in and kisses Cameron on the head. Then Cameron watches as Dev turns off the lantern, plunging them into darkness. Lugging around equipment while trying to be quiet about it quickly gets Devon sweating through his shirt, and he has to take it off. He's making the extra effort not to disturb the coyote because Cameron seems to be really trying, his eyes closed and ears up. Dev didn't even need to ask him to take out his phone so he could record audio. He just did it, and to Devon, that just proved how much Cameron wanted to do this. As Dev goes about testing his equipment, Cameron shifts and mumbles something. Dev perks up. Hey, hon, I'm right here. You alright? I need to get more comfortable. At the same time, he adjusts himself so that his feet are on the suitcase in front of him. Okay. Something about Cameron's demeanor is bothering Dev. And Cameron's words were a little slurred. And he does seem kind of not quite there. Should he pull him out of it? Devon had never seen a psychic in action before, so maybe this is normal, like a trance. He hopes it's normal because even if Devon can find his answers, he'd give them up for Cameron to discover he isn't psychotic. As he's fiddling with his EMF sensor, dread suddenly clutches at his chest. What if the opposite happened, and Cam really did lose his mind? Like when his mom got psychosis. If that happens, Devon is only now realizing that he would be responsible. And how could Cameron forgive him for that? How could he forgive himself? Shit. Dev hisses under his breath. What the fuck is he doing? Bringing his boyfriend to this room where that happened. He was usually alone or with friends when doing these investigations, and his want to see something always overpowered the fear. He just assumed Cam would be used to scary shit, especially after he described that flat-faced creature in a raincoat that he'd been seeing since he was a kid. He just assumed. Why was it only now that he was realizing what the consequences could be? The feeling he'd had earlier about being a social dumbass comes back, but far stronger. This isn't something a loving partner does to another partner. He's fucking using Cameron for his own selfish reasons. Devon knows that the coyote has some kind of ESP abilities, but that didn't mean he didn't also have other issues that could fuck him up. That didn't mean that possibly seeing those awful things wouldn't cause him to develop more issues. Devon gets up and paces for a bit, beginning to make up his mind, deciding that right after this, they're done, no matter what. The bear looks at the closet, The one where a wolf from the Meseta Tribal Council hung himself in the early 90s. If only he could see one thing, just one sliver of proof that she's okay on the other side, he'd be at peace with all this. Dev lets out a shuddering sigh, standing in the closet, looking at that bar, wondering if it's the same one that the wolf used. Devon feels something. Not a good something. A chill runs up his spine, and suddenly he's shivering. No way. It's actually happening. Holy shit. Holy shit. That's all he can manage to say. It's happening, but it feels so wrong. Then a fear that he's never known before takes over. He wants to turn around. He wants to call out to Cameron, but it's like something is around his neck, holding him in place. And then he hears a terrible sound behind him. Cameron knows something is happening for sure. It's scary, but at the same time, it's making him question what he'd always believed. Had Devon been right about this stuff? Had he just misunderstood himself for so long? He could see someone, nothing like the monsters he'd seen in the past. Instead, this was a man in a suit with a bolo tie. He was sad, he was angry, and he was terrified. Cameron knew this was often what psychics described when talking about sensing people from the past. You feel their most intense moment in life. This man, this wolf, he's going to do something terrible. And while Cameron is marveling over this, the wolf suddenly changes. At the same time, Cameron feels his focus turn to him. This gives the coyote pause, because now this presence was trying to interact with him. Was this right? Cameron thinks it could be, but something doesn't feel right about it. Like this isn't what he thinks it is. But he supposes that anyone doing this for the first time would feel it to be strange. Maybe it was doing the light sensing wrong. The point is to listen to the past, like a recording. This direct communication is scaring the coyote, but this could be his chance to answer Dev's question, and his own question for that matter. I'm sorry to bother you. What's after death? Where do we go? It feels stupid and clumsy, but it's all that comes to his mind, so Cameron asks it over and over. There's a long, empty pause. And then something like a cackle. It almost sounds fake, like a Halloween toy, but it's dark, mean, and it's making fun of him. All the feelings of wonder and hope for a breakthrough are deflated instantly. He needs Dev. He needs to open his eyes. Cameron's eyes are heavy, and he can barely focus. Something has gone terribly wrong. This presence is evil, malicious. This isn't a person. Now, all that the coyote can sense is that a profound tragedy has just taken place. He needs Devon, and he thinks he sees him as his vision begins to slowly focus. At first, Cameron doesn't understand what he's seeing. How is Dev standing like that? Why isn't he moving? He realizes why over the next few seconds. The unnatural way Dev's weight seems to pull up at his neck says it all. Cameron starts screaming, but it's weak, muffled, barely a wheeze from his throat, and he can't move. Paralysis. This isn't real. This is sleep paralysis, but something about this is so fucked, so real, and he couldn't have fallen asleep. He's almost positive about that. But even if he had, his boyfriend could actually be hanging himself while the coyote sits uselessly on the couch. Terror begins to engulf him. How could this happen? How could he do this? How? Cameron tries screaming again, but again it's just a wheeze of breath. He stares at Devon's contact image, instead of Devon dead in the closet. They took that picture in college, 5 years ago and just a month into their relationship. At the time, it was a token to show his other gay friends, to prove he had a boyfriend and that he was a handsome bear. And he'd never changed it, even though he had no one to show it off to anymore. How the hell did they end up here? The phone picks up and switches to speaker automatically. Cameron knows deep down that this must be a dream, but Devon is still hanging in the closet, and he's overcome by the horror that this could be just a partial dream, and that the worst part of it is real. It makes Cameron try and fail to scream again.
What? To know? Like?
Cameron stares at the phone, unable to understand through the static, but able to recognize the voice.
You said you wanted to know, like to die? I'd say it's like drowning forever. Conscious forever while you suffocate for what made you happy when you were alive. And then again, you don't believe in anything. So what you really want to know is what it's like to disappear. Because you're scared. You tell yourself you want to die, that you wish your mom didn't save your worthless life, that you deserve it. Now you tell yourself that if it weren't for me, you'd have ended things back in college. We both know that's a lie, because you're a fucking coward. You'll stay alive as long as you can be with someone who can keep you alive. I could have treated you like absolute shit the past 5 years and you'd still be around today. You fucking begged Dylan not to leave you. Just weeks after he punched you and gave you that scar. The one you said you got from falling against the cabinet. You're sick. Meanwhile, you let me put you in this situation. You said you wanted it. Do you still want it?
No. Please, God, no. Cameron can't even move his lips.
Anyway, I'm getting a little off topic, aren't I? You wanted to know what the afterlife is like? I'll give you an idea.
Devon's voice becomes more muffled.
Yo, Lupita! Tell my boyfriend what it's like.
It's quiet for a moment, and Cameron just sits in stunned misery, just waiting. A terrible demonic scream screeches through the phone, and Cameron's fur bristles all over his body, and he fights this prison that he's in with everything he has, and finally breaks free. It takes Devon a moment to realize that terrible sound is coming from Cameron. He's never heard him make a sound like that before. At that moment, whatever it is that has a hold on the bear dissolves, and Devon turns around, heaving for breath. When Dev looks at him, he sees Cameron's eyes are wide open. Cameron? Cameron makes that sound again. Though Devon has no idea what Cameron's seeing, he knows that it's something terrible. Devon feels himself beginning to panic. Baby, please! What's happening? Cameron just stares back and Devon finally snaps. Cameron! Devon is stepping out of the closet when suddenly Cameron lunges off the couch, making a feral sound. The look in the coyote's eyes is so intensely unlike him that Devon draws back in fear. Honey, it's me! To Dev's shock, Cameron's paws flies to the bear's neck, but instead of squeezing like he thinks he's going to, they rip at the thick fur there. Wait, stop! Devon manages to catch Cameron's paws in his own much larger paws, easily restraining the smaller male. Cameron continues to stare at Devon's neck, seeming to search intently, then looks up at Dev's face. I saw you dead. You called me and screamed at me. Though Devon doesn't understand, he can tell this wasn't one of Cameron's typical night terrors. The look on his face says it all. Fuck. I'm really sorry. I'm driving you to Peyton right now, or wherever the hell you want to go. But as Devon tries to pull him to the door, Cameron resists. Wait. Just let me catch my breath, okay? Okay, just take deep breaths, okay? Devon fumbles with the lantern until he turns it on. Then he stands next to Cameron for a few moments, listening to him sob. Can I at least hold you? Please? Cameron leans toward him as an answer. While Dev strokes his head, Cameron starts to rub his back, like he knows that Dev had been terrified too. I'm fine. It was just a really intense vision. I'm so sorry. I've never seen you like that before. You scared the absolute shit out of me. Did you think I was attacking you? Huh? You were going after my neck, sort of. Oh no, I saw you hanging in the closet. Cameron's breath hitches in his chest. Like from your neck. Oh shit. Yeah. And it was so fucking real. They hold each other in silence for a while, Devon mulling over what Cameron just told him. Devon no longer has his doubts that Cameron is psychic, but right now that doesn't matter. He just wants the coyote to feel safe again. Devon? Yeah, honey. I think you're right. What about? Something happened. I don't know if it's ghosts or whatever the hell else that would have been, but that wasn't just me. I've never felt or seen things like that before. There's more to this than me being crazy. There has to be. We can talk about this when we're in Peyton, okay? Dev, I promised to be honest with you, and I need to tell you something now, otherwise I probably never will. What is it? Dev's heart starts to pound as he sees the look on Cameron's face. Lupita was in this vision, Dev. But please believe me when I say I don't think it was really her, but... What? Cameron hesitates. Cameron, please, tell me. I'm really sorry, but I heard her. And it was awful. And... I don't know, it was just a terrible scream. It was horrible. The floor seems to fall out from under Devon, and he feels like he's falling into an abyss.